Hey, you guys, and welcome to another empowering episode of Oh Jackie O. I am Jackie O. Today we have a powerhouse guest joining us, Dr. Jatali. I'm trying try not to butcher your name.
Thank you.
Bellington. Dr. J. I'm going to call you Dr. J because I don't
No
want to
worries.
just mess up your name. Is a trailblazer in wealth building, an angel investor, breaking barriers in male-dominated industries, and a passionate advocate for empowering individuals and families to take control of their financial future. In this episode, we are diving deep into building generational wealth, money, and power, and how financial education can shift the wealth trajectory for individuals, families, and entire communities. Get ready to take notes because Dr. J is about to drop some game changing gems that will transform the way you think about money and success. Hi, Dr. J, how are you?
I'm amazing. Having a very relaxed and chill day today. I'm a Pisces, so this whole month to me has been my birthday month.
So you've
So,
been on it all month,
um,
celebrating your birthday.
yes, yes. I've been this is for the first time in about 20 plus years. I was like, you know what, this month I'm just gonna make the whole month my birthday month. And I'm just gonna enjoy the whole month. So I've just been really balancing my work life balance and making
Yeah,
sure I'm more present for 2025 and more human. Because my other mode is like superhuman cape and just team no sleep.
I get it. I get it. Sounds good to me, though. I would celebrate too. Okay, so let's get into it. What inspired you to focus on financial education and wealth building strategies?
So I had a mother figure who's really bad with money. And so growing up, seeing her financial struggle, watching her live bar to borrow, it really scarred me straight. And
Mm,
so as soon as I was old enough to actually make a difference in my own life when it comes to the financial world, I definitely wanted to learn everything I knew and I could know about money. And that also expanded beyond just those basics, but also just at one point realizing, okay, now you know about money, but there are lots of people around you who do not know about money. Whether it's my nieces and
mhm.
nephews, other adults. So I started with children, and then as I started to go into the school systems of the finance curriculum for children, I realized a lot of their parents, their principals, the teachers, the list continues, did not have this information. And I just became really focused, hyper focused on making sure everyone, to the best of my abilities, were able to learn financial literacy. And to the point that it motivated me to go back to school, get my PhD in neuropsychology. And I really just pivoted to focusing on mental and financial health.
Okay, so you mentioned your mom. Were you able to help your mom get over
Um,
that slump?
so so she's my mother figure, she's my stepmother.
Okay.
We didn't stay too close because she just kept making bad decisions. And unfortunately, I personally don't believe in staying in a negative space. So although I
I
did try to,
get it.
I realize not everyone wants to be saved. And some people, especially if you have certain habits like gambling, addictive habits like gambling, drinking, it's harder for certain people to really walk away from that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would help her and it would be like delayed for about a month and then she would go right back into the same vicious cycle because she'd be like, well, now I have a little break and I can now go do this or I can now go gamble and try to make more and quadruple the money. And, one thing I've learned is especially when people have addictive personalities, it's really hard to stop them from being who they are. So,
Exactly.
it's okay if you don't want to change, that's fine. But I didn't want to remain in that vicious cycle. Didn't want to be around that or dragged down from that. And so I made the hard decision a long time ago, maybe about 18 years ago, to just
Mm.
actually put a break between her and I. And it's interesting because maybe as recently as last year, someone I know who knows her ran into me and they're like, yeah, she's still living the same exact life, bar to borrow, from a
Oh,
basement to a nice
goodness.
apartment to another basement. You never know what she's going to deal with. And that is a lifestyle, I thank God, that I don't have and that my child will never have. And, between living trust and real estate trust and all the things that we need to make sure he has generational wealth, um,
Mhm.
that is it. We're not going to allow ourselves to be dragged down.
I get it. I totally get it. So many families struggle to break the cycle of financial instability. What are the first steps to change that?
I would say you have to have the will and desire to do so. Right? Because lots of people, it sounds like, oh, people be like, oh, yeah, no, everyone wants to. be rich. That is not the case. A lot of people are happy just skating by,
Mhm.
just being able to live day by day and make the bare minimum. There are a lot of people who, they're like, oh, I live in a rent stabilized place. I'm never leaving. 50 years later, they're passing it out in family to family to family, and they don't see anything wrong with that. And that's okay if that's your lifestyle. But you have to first decide, what is your financial goal? And
Mhm.
are you willing to break the comfortable and embrace the uncomfortable to get to your next level? The next thing I would say is create a budget and make the whole family be a part of the budget. I know oftentimes, especially in black communities, whether you're African, Caribbean, the list continues. I've noticed African American, I've noticed a trend in which oftentimes parents don't want to talk to the children about financial things, but yet kids are some of our biggest consumers in our lives, right? So if you have a child who's telling you that he wants toys and Hot Wheels cars, or a little girl who wants Barbie doll clothing that costs $10 for fake clothing when you could have bought real clothing, sometimes it's
Mhm.
important to have a budget conversation with your children and your family and be like, this is the family's big goal. We're trying to work towards X, Y, and Z. And then in return, tell them, hey, now that we're working towards this big goal, we're going to cut back on buying 80 pieces of Barbie doll clothing. Maybe we're going to
Mhm.
get one, and then we're going to put the rest of
Mhm.
that balance towards buying the new house or the car, whatever it is that the family's working towards, the family vacation, whatever. And I think that makes you go further, especially when you include your whole family into the community of saving and earning. And
You
then last but not least, I would definitely say, um, take as many workshops and classes, especially free workshops and classes, as you can. You might not be able to afford a wealth manager or someone of that nature, but you can definitely go on YouTube University and all these different platforms. And there are a lot of, even on Instagram and sometimes even TikTok, there are some education educators. Of obviously do your research, make sure that they're giving you good information. But I think it's really important that we do the homework, we do our own research.
you mentioned a cycle. You mentioned that this is a cycle. Like, is it hard to break that cycle? Do you feel like it's hard for families to break that cycle?
I honestly don't think it's hard to break the cycle because I've broken it for myself and for my family and my little one. My son, at the age of 3, 4 years old, started picking out his own stocks. And,
Mhm.
he's really good on budget, earn and save. And I make him earn all his little Hot Wheels cars. So I know it's not that hard. And a lot of my friends who are around me now, we're all doing it too. We're all breaking this vicious cycle of poverty, right? We all have
Mhm.
children who are learning how to earn, save, and budget. We are all putting our kids on budget, even though sometimes for us as parents it's hard because we want to spoil our kids. And while a lot of us believe in nepotism, so we don't mind creating the relationships and friendships that our children will one day inherit. But we also make sure our kids understand they have to inherit it. They have to earn it.
Yeah.
They might have to, you could be entitled, but don't be spoiled. You have to realize
Right.
that it's not going to just be given to you. But you do have to, I'll get you to interview at the law firm if you want to go work there. But you have to be able to earn the right to work at that law firm.
And that's
Class to class.
That's good that you're instilling that in your kids while they're young. Most people don't do that, and most people are not, I guess, educated enough to know. Because so it's good to have people like you around in your circle because if you have somebody in your circle doing good, you're gonna want to do well as you want to do good as well.
I
So
fully agree.
that's a good thing.
That community part right there, before we move on, I must say is the most important. Because even for myself, as I was entering like certain rooms and I
Hmm.
wanted to get into bigger rooms, that was a major part for me, was embracing the uncomfortable of being in a room where I don't know anyone and I'm a stranger and everyone's a
Hmm.
stranger. And
Hmm.
then being willing to create new friends. But
Yeah.
having parameters, right? If there are certain triggers or little red flags, paying attention to those red flags, but being in a position where I'm willing to open the bigger doors and then walk through the big door. And one of my favorite quotes from a close friend of mine was, "Remove the hinges off of the doors." And so
Hmm.
the last couple of years for me has been that I want to remove the hinges off the doors so that doors don't exist, and it makes it easier for us to walk through them. But at that same point, you have to be willing. If I show you where the water is, to go drink the water.
Hmm. So
Mhm.
if you're an introvert like me,
I'm more of an
how is
ambivert
it?
now. I've converted.
You were?
I was an
That's
introvert for a
hard to
long
believe.
time.
Oh, okay. So if you're an introvert, how hard or easy for a person to get in the room and, like you say, just meet people and talk to people? And that's been the hardest thing for me. I'm trying to get past that. If I can get past my introverted ways, I think that I could do better with meeting people and getting in the room with those people that you're saying you got to surround yourself with people that are doing great?
So I will say for me, the way I pushed past my introvert with the first phase is one, I had to be more passionate about what I was talking about and what I was doing. My purpose had to outweigh my fear of being around too many people or their mannerisms or their nature. I had to make sure that I had a goal that was bigger. Was my goal bigger than my fears? Yes, that was one. Second thing for me was honestly finding my tribe, right? So I'm a geek. I like to talk about string theory and I like to go to my scientific, medical conferences and so I really started first going to conferences where I felt comfortable because these people were speaking my language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was things I wanted to learn more about, when it comes to like Alzheimer's and Lewy disease and realizing how alcoholism and different substance abuse. So like here were conferences talking about this, and everyone in this room were geeks like me who wanted to talk about this, right? And maybe I don't know if geek is a proper term anyway, but we were all very sapio, like very smart, and we all wanted to be able to talk about these kind of subjects. And once I was able to talk about something I was confident that I knew a lot about, and my dissertation and explore that part of me, or even on
Mm-hmm.
the finance side, loving to invest and talking about day trading and options trading and different plays and candles and sticks and so like, then when I would go to those kind of conferences, I was surrounded by people who were like, yeah, I've had a blah, blah, blah percent profit day. I had a 160% profit day. And once again, I felt comfortable. So I think the first step is being comfortable, being around people who speak your language, who are doing something
Mm-hmm.
that you're very passionate or interested in learning more about, or you already know a lot about, but you want to get deeper into. And that was a very big pivot for me because then I
Mm-hmm.
started being around these people and we spoke the same language. So then here comes lunch and dinner. We're together. We're congregating, and that conference
Got
would
it.
lead to, hey, when you're in New York or if you're in LA, etc., come. I'm here too. Pull up. And so that was the first phase. And then, there's different sects of your life, right? So you might be a parent. Maybe you're going to want to find people who parent the way you do. And you can
Yeah.
talk to them about what's happening and maybe get to your next level of parenting. Same for business, entrepreneurship. I just feel like there's ways for us to do that in every level of
Mm-hmm.
who we are as people. And
Mm-hmm.
that was like a very major focus for me.
What are some of the most common financial mistakes people make that prevent wealth, that prevent them from for becoming wealthy, I guess?
I think the biggest thing is living beyond their means. Oftentimes we get more money, we start spending more money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make $20,000 more, that's beautiful. But that means you should be probably saving 20,000 because if you were able to live off of the 100,000 you were making before, maybe take out of that 20,000 additional 5,000 to just get a little extra couple of things that you like, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. And then, just having some kind of a rule, right? It's a 50/30/20 method, but you create what that 50/30/20 should look like. The 50/30/20 might tell you 50% should go towards your wants and only 30% goes towards your needs. I don't believe in that. I believe that 50% should go towards your needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like investing, and that should become a need, right? Reprioritizing what your needs look like. So if you could pay your bills with the 30% and invest with 20%, then do that. If you can invest with 50% of your money and your bills and your needs and your electric and your phone bill is only at 30%, then brilliant. And then that 20% will be your lavish lifestyle, your trips and things of that nature, even better. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
very big on that. And that's one of the biggest things I would tell people, like, just living within your beings. And don't try to keep up with the Jones. A lot of people are poor
That.
and broke. Actors, celebrities, you name it, athletes. Some of them you hear about these, NIL deals that are $1 million deals, and some of them after a year or two are actually financially struggling. And so
Yeah.
a lot of people who are actors and actresses, very famous, that are my clients, and don't try to look through my page to figure out who it is because you're not going to find it. Because some of them I don't even follow on social media on purpose. But some of them, my clients who are off the record, some of them are like literally just, I'm helping them save their first $10,000, right? They're financially living and struggling because, you get one movie role, sometimes a $30,000 role. But you're locked in for almost a year shooting this movie, depending how long or where you're going to be shooting. Sometimes you're getting paid 100,000. You're following your dream and your purpose, and your dream and purpose might not be making you that much money. So
What do
but
you
then.
say? What do
Mhm.
you say to people that say YOLO? You only live once, you know?
I mean, I understand YOLO, and that's where you have to also understand that if you could make a little sacrifice now, if you could take
Hmm.
a year or 2 years now to be able to get to your bag, then when you're
Mhm.
YOLO, there's two different levels. There's levels to YOLO, right? There's
Mhm.
private jet YOLO, there's YOLO, there is private driver driving you around so you can take back your time and work while you're in the car, headed to your meetings YOLO. But then there's also you went to a $600 steak night restaurant and now you're broke for the rest of the month. Like, I don't know. To me, that's not YOLO. That's not living, right? If I could do this one time and then I'm broke and I'm like,
Right.
girl, is ramen for the rest of the month? I don't want to do that. I'd rather
Right.
cook my
I
own
feel
meal
you.
every day and know I put that money into the pot. And by next year, I don't really have a cap. I don't really have a budget. I could just
Right.
be like, I want to go to Dubai next month and let's go to Dubai. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't be a second
Right.
thought. And if I want to fly first class Etihad or Emirates or whatever, I should be able to
Mhm.
do so. That is to me YOLO. That's really living, right?
Right.
But the aspect where it's like I'm gonna do this one time and I'm gonna be broke for the next 5 years, that is not living.
Right.
That's struggling.
Right. So you've disrupted male-dominated industries as an angel investor.
Mm.
What has that journey been like?
It's been the most beautiful journey because I've actually really truly connected with my tribe, in my opinion, since I've actually started doing this. And one, I will say sometimes it's insane because when people hear you're an angel investor, people pitch you all day, every day. I could be
Mhm.
trying to eat dinner and someone sees me and they're like, oh, aren't you the person who invested in blah, blah, blah company? And oh, I have the most amazing company. You're going to love my company. And I'm like, I'm just trying to eat some dinner in peace with my little one. Can I please get a, or people randomly trying to take your picture and it's weird. Like I'm eating, my mouth is open and you're trying to take my picture while I eat. I am
So
not Mary J. Blige. Like, give me a break.
can it be overwhelming sometimes?
So that part is overwhelming, but honestly, what I've gained from this is way more beautiful and powerful. And besides the ability and the grace of helping a few people with their companies on their angel investing side, startups, helping them get to their next level, it's also the blessing of knowing that you're investing in something that could go 100x, 30x, 50x, 20x. I've made a 30x was my biggest, but I've made a 15% profit. I've made a 30% profits, and also watching that person's company live in the world and knowing that you are a part of that.
Mhm.
As well, you get to meet other investors who also are like minded. I'm very big on investing in social impact, sustainable philanthropy type projects. So then I get to meet other philanthropists and other people who care about social impact. And now I'm surrounded by the most amount of millionaires and billionaires I've ever been in my life. And that's been very
Mhm.
cool because now you're like having brunch at a billionaire's house and you're like, what? And it's like, for me to get to where I want to get to next, those are the people I want to be surrounded by because they're the ones who know the tax
Exactly.
brackets, they know the tax codes, they know the cool shelters, they know how to diversify my portfolio healthily, and they're sharing that
Exactly.
information because one thing I've learned is that once you reach a certain level of wealth, people of their stature aren't trying to really gatekeep as much as people would imagine. And I feel like I had more gatekeepers around me when I was around the people who were making like six figures, trying to get to the
Mm.
millions. And
Mhm.
it's like the millionaire people, they'd be like, oh, girl, just do this. Oh, here's my tax person. Here's my this. And it's like, it's been a very beautiful journey because it's like literally finding your tribe and, and
Mhm.
letting your hair down and knowing that you don't have to worry about certain basics.
Wow, that's
So,
interesting. That's an
yeah.
interesting concept there because most people, and I don't want to say broke, but most people that don't have a lot of money, they are always gatekeeping. Like, they don't want you to know certain stuff because they don't want you to get ahead of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome that you can find your tribe and get in, be around millionaires, and they don't mind giving you the information that you need that's going to help take you to the next level.
I
Tell
agree.
us about Kids Who Bank. What impact has that had on students and educators?
It's been beautiful because a lot of educators would say that they didn't think their kids could learn that from such a young age. As well, then I would start teaching the kids, and then the teachers would be like, Dr. J, like, I love the simplicity, the ABC way in which you teach financial literacy. Can you teach me? And so it's creating a situation where it's not just the kids learning, it's the parents, it's the teachers, it's a little bit of everybody. And so the biggest impact I've noticed is basics like kids who are couponing now, right? They're putting me onto the apps now, like Dr. J, did you know you could go on this app and get all these coupons? I'm like, oh, really
Yeah.
cool. Kids who are now realize that hey, if they're from an inner city community, that is not their paradigm, that they have to live in like the projects or something. Like I had one child, he was like, oh, like my mom used to tell me that I would never live in one of these multi-million dollar high-rise mansions. And I'm like, I don't want to say your mom is wrong, but it's all about your work ethic and what do you put into this universe that's going to allow you to do this. And he was just
Mm-hmm.
so shocked. And he was like, really? I
Mm-hmm.
was like, really? And now that same kid, he started his own first little business. He's 14 years old. And you know and I told him about a little girl who was selling slime, and he loved it, and he was like, I'm gonna make my own slime, Dr. J. And he started selling slime to his friends, and now he's on his he's both in school and trying to be an entrepreneur. And so for me, I think the biggest impact has been noticing that the mindset shift of realizing that even if your parent, even if your teacher, your educator, whoever is telling you that you're never going to amount to anything, you have to believe in yourself and realize that there are these verticals where you can. And so that's been the beautiful part, is showing them other youth, other kids who are doing it, who are young, who don't have silver spoons and have built it themselves, and adults who also built it from scratch.
Good that you said that, because that brings me to my next question. What key financial lessons do you believe should be taught in every school?
I think that one, budget, earn, and save is definitely one of them. I think
Mm-hmm.
investing and that you can't save yourself into wealth, true wealth, is another important part. And then also the tax laws of the country that we live in, like shelters and understanding like a trust, a living trust, and basics and government grants, right? There's a lot of government grants that would help a kid who's like 15 years old, right? You might have curly hair. There might be a grant for you just because you have curly hair you could submit to. And then understanding how those grants work, right? Like, do you have to pay taxes on there? The list continue. So that is like, I would say the main things I would say teach schools really should include. But I think also part of that is also just understanding like financial, I would say, what's the word? Positive financial affirmations. So that's another thing I
Mm-hmm.
think we need to have the kids do, are positive affirmations in the school systems,
Mm-hmm.
and really building up their mindset around who they are and who they're becoming.
I like that because, even as an adult, we need positive affirmations on a daily. So instilling that in kids while they're still young, like
And
that helps them.
impressionable, like why not?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That's good.
Thank
So
you.
if school and businesses implemented financial literacy on a larger scale, how do you think that would impact communities and the economy as a whole?
I think that America would become more of a super country. I think that if all of the people, I've been to countries where a lot of the people are educated to a certain level, highly. Most of them speak multiple languages. Most of them are making a certain amount of money. They're promoting the wealth and I see how far the economy is. I think that we are all consumers. So if we were to start explaining consumerism and making sure that our youth understood that we are all consumers and the good and the bad of being a consumer, I think that it
Mhm.
would allow us to be further along as a country, especially in America. And I think that would make us more of a super country where people are like, oh wow, everybody here have a certain level of wealth. Like, let me keep coming here. And because that is honestly the big American dream, right? Lots of people come from other countries to America because they're looking for that American dream. And so
Right.
that is a major part to me, is
Mhm.
how do we ensure this American dream?
What financial habits do you personally swear by?
One, every time I make a check, like if I speaking engagement, get paid for something, I take a portion that goes towards investment. I split it. I always put, no matter what, even if it's $5, something's going towards a stock, purchasing something of that is investment wise, a piece of gold, something. And then the other portion of what I believe in, honestly, is making sure that I am putting in time for self love days. And so financially, people don't realize, like, mentally making sure that you are stable, that you are comfortable, that you are healthy is the most important. So rather it's going to Pilates or going to meditate or going to a spa day and taking a portion to go to a spa day, that all counts. And then having a mentor. So rather, so I've more than once had to pay for mentors. Now I'm lucky right now where all the mentors I currently have, I don't have to pay for them. That's a blessing. But I've
That
definitely
is a
throughout
blessing.
different phases have had to pay for mentors. And there'd be times I'm like, oof, like how much is your price? Can I afford this person? But I've realized that when you pick the right mentors, the price
Mhm.
that you pay, pales in
Hmm.
comparison to what you receive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. How can women become more confident in making investment and business decisions?
I think reading the right books, doing the right research, making sure that you understand the terminologies, even something as simple as we talk about the S&P 500 and Nasdaq and Dow. Do you know the difference between the S&P 500 and Nasdaq and Dow? What is a composite? What exactly is the stock market? Do you know what a stock is? You know, equity in a company. You know, what does that mean? If you're going to invest in crypto, do you understand that the blockchain is a transparent ledger? What does that mean? I think educating yourself in the terms, these everyday terms, is the number one most important thing that you can do, because how can you invest in something when you don't even understand the terms of what you're investing in? And I'm like, yes, some people just jump in blindly, but if you're not going to do it, then you need to get a wealth manager. You need somebody who's going to know the terms inside and out. But even then, do you have a wealth manager who's willing to teach you as much as they can so that you're not ignorant? Because it's like the person who's married to the wealthy man. In the end of the day, that's beautiful, but if God forbid he dies tomorrow, are you able to take over everything and keep the wealth going?
I like that. I like that. So I know you talk a lot about investing and this and that. How can a person go about? You say learning more about investment. How can a person go about doing that? Like, do they just? I know Google is your best friend. For
I
one,
mean, besides
do you?
myself, obviously. No. So I think, some of the best things I would say is, like, for instance, someone like Earn Your Leisure. Shout out to them. I'm one of their professors. They bring together a beautiful pool of educators who know a lot of the financial game. Obviously, you should always do your homework. So, like, sometimes somebody might tell you a hack to fix your credit, and the hack might be something that might be legal depending if you're doing it the right way or the wrong way. So be careful, right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes you can't control what every professor teaches. But for the most part, like, I've done a dividend workshop on there, right? And that dividend class did very well. And we walked through, like, what are dividends and what is a REITs, and why do REITs give so much of their money to through via dividends, and so just different ways and vehicles of making money, right? You want to invest in real estate, same thing. There are so many people like Kiana Watsons of the world who give a lot of information and talk about, like, the Burr method, and how you can rinse and repeat, and it's just there's so many things out there now. Like, Google really is your best friend, but Investopedia actually has a lot of information as well. The people over at Investopedia have a beautiful pool of information that I am a fan of, that just keeps everything in all in one place. So you can just put in, like, what are stocks, and then, like, it'll have the information for you. And how do you day trade or options trade, and the basic information will be that. And if you're, like, looking into stocks, for instance, and they're not telling me to promote them, but I'll say Charles Schwab, they bought TD Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade used to have this thing called Thinkorswim, which is like paper syndication, which is when you use fake money to pretend like you're investing in the stock market where the stock is, and it lets you see, if you had believed in yourself, what that would have looked like, right? So Thinkorswim is one of my favorite platforms. When you're learning how to invest in stocks, companies like Charles Schwab have people whose jobs are to teach you how to buy your first share of a stock, right? So you might not be
Mhm.
able to get access to me, but you can call Charles Schwab, open up an account for free, fund it for like $100, and ask them to teach you how to buy a stock, right? And then you can
Mhm.
then proceed to ask them how to teach you how to use Thinkorswim, so you can paper trade and not use real money, but you can realize, like, if you had trusted yourself to buy, like, let's say Apple stock, not telling people to buy it, but if you bought this share of a company, in my professional opinion, if that company goes up, guess what? If it went up, you would have been able to use this platform and see, man, if I believed in myself, my money would have been up 5%, 20%, 40%. And, or you could have been like, I'm not good at this. Maybe I need a professional to do this for me, because I've been trying to play with this Thinkorswim fake money for like a year, and I'm not doing
Mhm.
so well. And you now
Mhm.
know where your weaknesses are and how to better yourself.
So that walks us into this very last question because we're going to wrap it up right now.
Perfect.
For those who are listening, who are inspired by what we just talked about,
hmm
but don't know where to start. And we talked about stocks, we talked about a lot of stuff, but what's the first step that they should take today?
The first thing you should do today is just jump in. You say you want a piece of crypto. Guess what? You could buy partial shares of crypto. You want Bitcoin? You could take $5 right now, open up a MetaMask, go to Coinbase, and even if it's $5, even if you don't fully know how to do it, you can buy $5 worth of it, right? If you say, I have an iPhone and I use this phone all the time, do you own shares in that company? If your son drags you, like my son drags me to Target all the time. So when he started to buy stocks, I was like, buddy, you should look at companies that you invest in all the time and see if they're public. He was like, Mom, is Target public? I was like, Google it. Let's find out together. I already knew the answer. He Googled it.
Google
He's
is
like,
your
yes,
best
on the
friend.
stock market. I was like, oh, do you own a share of it? He was like, nah. I was like, you want to buy it? So he saved up his money. He bought his first share. There's
This is
just
your
no,
10-year-old?
and
You said
he's
your
10 now,
10-year-old?
but when we started, when he bought
Oh,
Target,
okay.
he was 5 when he first bought Target.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
during COVID, he was buying like all these companies, you know. Like, so, you know, if a 5-year-old could buy a share of Target because he knows he goes to Target every
Why
week,
can't I?
why can't you as an
That's
adult?
something.
So let my child inspire you. Don't be intimidated. It takes nothing to go on to Charles Schwab and fill out the paperwork online and fund your account. And you know, even if it's $20, instead of buying that pizza pie, take that $20 and do this instead.
Oh, that is some good advice. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
J. You
you.
have given us some gems today. I have been inspired by this whole conversation. Like, it's
Thank you,
been
Jackie.
a blessing to talk to you. I thank you so much for coming on and giving our listeners some gems and letting them know like some things that you are doing to get get yourself to the next level. Well, you're already at the next level. That's what it sounds like.
Let me tell you, no matter how many levels you think you've gone up, there's a whole lot of
There's
more levels.
there's more,
So
right?
my next level
There's
is
more.
billionaire status, God willing. And so I've been surrounding myself around more billionaires. I could feel it, I could smell it, I could see it. I'm
Mhm.
excited, and I'm just in a space of gratitude. So for me, I'm grateful for what I've accomplished, but I also know no matter how much I've learned and how much I know, I still don't know enough. I still don't know all of it, and
You don't know enough,
it's an
right? It's
exciting
always room
phase.
for learning, right?
Yeah,
Always room
definitely,
for learning, always room for growth.
100%.
Thank you, Dr. J. We appreciate you so much for coming on and
Thank you,
giving us
Jackie.
some advice that we can really use. So, thank you guys so much for joining another episode of Oh Jackie Yo podcast. It has been a blessing to talk to Dr. J. Can you give us some of your, I guess, like where people can follow you if they are interested in like getting more information from you or just knowing what you're doing every day? Because I'm inspired by your story and
Thank
what
you,
you have
Jackie.
going on.
I would say the main social media I utilize honestly is Instagram. So Jatali
Instagram.
Bellenton on Instagram, aka Dr. J. And then on LinkedIn, Jatali Bellenton. I'm gonna be utilizing my LinkedIn more because I've been getting cussed out by my PR team about it. So I will be definitely trying to engage people in there more often. So those two main things I would say. And then if you want to see my teaching style and learn more things from me, I did a show last year for Disney called Our America in the Black, and I'm actually the co-host of it along Darrell Booker from Microsoft's philanthropy department. And I
Mhm.
talk about everything as to like how you can use extra grant money as a person in college at uni to pay for stocks tax free, things of that nature. Just different hacks that people don't think about. No, I help a nonprofit. I help a young ladies going into college for the first time, leaving the foster care system, and the list continues. So
Mm.
we're just very happy to be out here, and check out Our America in the Black on Hulu, Disney, ABC7, and all the platforms. And if you like my teaching style, reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for joining another episode of Jackie O Podcast. And we are out. Have a good one, Dr. J.
Thank you for having me.